At 2 a.m., the office is dark except for one monitor and the tiny metal body of a USB drive resting beside the keyboard. The danger is not the file transfer. The danger is how fear can make a decent person negotiate with corruption until silence starts to feel reasonable. A junior accountant sits alone under the dead fluorescent glow, listening to the hum of the computer fan like it is counting down his life. His badge still hangs from his neck. His career, his rent, his parents' pride, the version of himself that played by the rules, all of it seems packed inside that small drive. What do you do when the truth costs more than comfort? FUDOSHIN does not make him fearless. It teaches him how to keep fear from becoming his master. Tonight is not about escaping pressure. It is about standing correctly inside it. The junior accountant is not the kind of person people imagine when they hear the word whistleblower. He does not look like a movie hero. He is not standing in the rain outside a courthouse with reporters yelling his name. He is sitting in an ergonomic chair that squeaks when he shifts his weight, wearing a button-down shirt with the sleeves pushed up because the office heat shut off after midnight. There is a half-empty paper cup beside the monitor. There are spreadsheet tabs still open on the screen. There is a USB drive near his right hand, small enough to disappear under a receipt, heavy enough to change the rest of his life. That is what makes the moment so dangerous. Power rarely announces itself like a villain. Most of the time, power sounds like policy. It sounds like a senior manager saying, "Let's keep this internal." It sounds like a legal department using careful language. It sounds like a calendar invite with no subject line. It sounds like the phrase, "We need you to be a team player," spoken by someone who already knows the team has done something wrong. He has seen enough. Not rumors. Not office gossip. Numbers. Approvals. Altered reports. Expense trails moved just far enough out of sight that a busy person would stop looking. He found the pattern because junior people often do the work that senior people pretend is automatic. They reconcile. They compare. They notice when one figure gets rounded, then corrected, then hidden under a category with a name so boring no one wants to read it twice. The computer fan hums beneath the desk. That sound keeps the room from becoming completely silent. It fills the gaps between his thoughts, and in those gaps his fear starts doing what fear does best. It makes a case for surrender. You are young. You are replaceable. You have loans. You do not have connections. They will say you misunderstood. They will say you were emotional. They will say you stole confidential material. They will say anything before they admit the truth. His hand moves toward the USB drive, then stops. The skin around his knuckles tightens. He looks at the office door even though nobody is there. That is how control leaves a person, not always through panic, not always through shouting, but through the sudden belief that every wall has eyes. He imagines the next morning. His badge no longer working. His email locked. His manager speaking in that calm, disappointed voice people use when they want punishment to sound professional. He imagines being called reckless, disloyal, naive. He imagines trying to explain himself to family members who do not understand corporate language, who only hear that he had a stable job and somehow lost it. That is the shadow in the room. Not simple fear. The fear of losing everything that made him feel safe. The fear that truth will not protect him fast enough. The fear that power can move quicker than justice, speak louder than evidence, and make a good person look unstable before the facts ever reach daylight. FUDOSHIN begins right there, before any grand action, before any clean ending. It begins in the ugly private second when fear offers him a bargain. Keep your life, give up your command. A less disciplined version of him would try to outrun the feeling. He would act from adrenaline, slam keys, send messages he could not take back, turn the whole night into a personal explosion. Another version would freeze and call it wisdom. He would remove the drive, go home, tell himself he needed more time, and let more time become another word for obedience. Both reactions come from the same place. One lets fear become fire. The other lets fear become fog. The disciplined path is colder than both. He stays seated. He does not dramatize himself. He does not imagine applause. He does not imagine revenge. He listens to the fan. He watches the cursor blink. He lets the fear speak without letting it write the script. That is the part most people do not understand about calm. Calm is not soft. In a room like this, calm can feel almost brutal. It refuses to flatter you. It does not tell you that everything will be fine. It does not promise that the powerful will suddenly become fair because you decided to tell the truth. Calm simply asks one hard question: can you remain the kind of person who can be trusted while the consequences are still unknown? His phone lights up on the desk. A text from his mother from earlier in the evening: "Don't work too late." He has not answered. For a few seconds, that small ordinary message hits harder than the files on the screen. It reminds him that his life is not an idea. It has people in it. Dinner tables. Rent. Insurance. A future he was trying to build quietly, without making enemies. He turns the phone face down. Not because those things do not matter. Because they matter so much that fear is trying to use them as hostages. The office around him feels different now. The dark glass of the conference room reflects a thin version of his face. The framed company values on the wall, integrity, accountability, trust, look almost insulting under the emergency lights. Somewhere across the floor, a copier clicks once and settles back into sleep. Everything in the building is designed to look orderly. The carpet, the keycards, the locked cabinets, the polite email signatures. But order without truth is just decoration. And power loves decoration. Power loves when people confuse professionalism with silence. It loves when a young employee mistakes obedience for maturity. It loves when fear dresses itself as patience and says, maybe this is not your responsibility. That sentence almost gets him. Because there is a tired part of him that wants to believe it. He wants to be small again. He wants his job to be his job, not a moral test at 2 a.m. in a dark office with a USB drive beside his hand. He wants someone older, richer, more protected, more certain to walk in and take the burden away. No one walks in. The fan keeps humming. His breath shortens, then he notices it. That noticing matters. FUDOSHIN is not the absence of pressure. It is the moment pressure is seen clearly enough that it can no longer disguise itself as destiny. He straightens in the chair. Not dramatically. Just enough. His shoulders come back from the collapsed curve they had fallen into. His feet settle flat under the desk. The USB drive remains where it is, but now it is no longer only a threat. It becomes a mirror. It shows him the difference between what he says he believes and what he is willing to carry when belief becomes expensive. The confrontation is not only between him and the company. It is between truth and career. Between reputation and conscience. Between the part of him trained to survive inside a system and the part of him that still knows when the system is asking for his soul in polite language. This is where many people lose themselves. They wait for courage to feel clean. They wait for certainty to remove the cost. They wait for the fear to go away before they act with honor. But fear does not leave just because the cause is right. The junior accountant still feels it in his stomach. He still sees the future cracking open in ways he cannot control. He still knows that powerful people may use procedure like a weapon and politeness like a locked door. Nothing about the room becomes easy. Only one thing changes. He stops asking fear for permission. The USB drive sits beside the keyboard, plain and silent. It does not make him brave. It does not save him from consequence. It simply holds a question he can no longer avoid. When power pressures you to become smaller than the truth, what posture do you take? For him, FUDOSHIN is not a speech. It is the discipline of staying clear when the room is built to make him doubt his own eyes. It is the refusal to let panic make him reckless, and the refusal to let fear make him obedient. It is truth over power, not because truth is safer, but because a life protected by surrender has already begun to shrink. Training does not begin after the fear leaves him. It begins while the USB drive is still beside his hand, while the computer fan keeps humming under the desk, while the office looks empty but feels crowded with invisible consequences. The junior accountant does not become calm because the decision becomes easy. He becomes steadier because he stops treating fear as an emergency order. That is the first cut of FUDOSHIN. He does not move just because his body wants movement. His right hand has been hovering near the mouse. He pulls it back and rests both palms flat on the desk. Nothing dramatic. No speech. No sudden courage. Just skin against cheap office laminate. That small contact gives his mind something solid to report. Desk. Chair. Floor. Screen. Fan. USB drive. The room is not the future. The room is the room. The future is trying to break in through imagination, wearing the faces of HR, attorneys, managers, bills, family questions, and every possible version of losing. He lets those images rise, but he does not let them drive. He says one sentence inside his head, plain enough that it cannot pretend to be poetry. I am afraid of losing everything. The words land hard. He does not soften them. He does not dress them up as stress or pressure or uncertainty. He names the exact shadow because unnamed fear gets to grow in the dark. Once named, it is still large, but it is no longer shapeless. The fan hums. He breathes once through his nose and notices how shallow it is. Then again, slower. His shoulders do not relax all at once. They drop by a fraction. His jaw unclenches enough for him to realize how long he had been biting down. He places both feet flat under the desk, heel and sole touching carpet, because a mind that is running into disaster needs a body that is returned to the floor. This is not a breathing technique in a clean studio with soft lighting. This is 2 a.m. in a dark office, with corporate corruption files open on a monitor and a career sitting on the edge of a blade. So the practice has to be ugly enough for real life. He looks at the USB drive again. Earlier, it looked like a weapon pointed back at him. Now he studies it as an anchor. Small. Silent. Unimpressed by his fear. It does not argue, does not comfort him, does not tell him what will happen. It only asks whether his hand will be ruled by panic or by principle. He does not touch it yet. That pause matters. The undisciplined mind confuses speed with courage. It wants the relief of action more than the responsibility of action. It wants to hit send, slam the laptop shut, and feel clean for 5 minutes. But a reckless truth can still become a form of ego. It can still burn people who did not choose the fire. It can still make the right thing weaker because the person carrying it needed to feel heroic. So he slows down. He reads the file names on the screen without dramatizing them. One line at a time. One folder at a time. He checks what is fact and what is assumption. He notices where anger tries to fill in gaps. He refuses to let anger become evidence. He refuses to let fear delete what he has already seen. His hand moves to a legal pad beside the keyboard. There are old numbers written on it from earlier in the week, a grocery list in the corner, a coffee ring near the top. He writes 3 words in block letters. Facts. Fear. Next. Under facts, he writes only what is already visible. No guesses. No insults. No revenge language. Under fear, he writes the thing his mind keeps repeating. Fired, blamed, blacklisted, alone. The words look smaller on paper than they felt inside his ribs. Under next, he leaves the line blank for a moment. That blank line is the training ground. Most people try to solve their whole life inside one blank line. He feels that urge. He wants a guarantee that truth will win, that the system will protect him, that his name will not be dragged through rooms he never entered. But there is no guarantee in the dark office. There is only the next clean action. He turns his phone over, sees his mother's unanswered text, and for 1 second the fear grabs him by the throat again. He imagines explaining unemployment over Sunday dinner. He imagines his father going quiet. He imagines people calling him foolish because they do not know the price of staying silent. His thumb hovers over the reply box. He almost types, "I'm fine." He stops. A lie that small would make the next lie easier. Instead, he locks the phone and sets it farther away, face down, beyond the edge of the legal pad. He does not owe the whole story at 2 a.m. He does owe the moment his full attention. That is the difference between secrecy and containment. One hides from truth. The other protects the mind from scattering. The computer fan keeps humming, steady as a low warning. He uses it like a metronome. With each cycle of sound, he brings his attention back to one physical thing: the weight of his shoes on carpet, the cool edge of the desk under his wrist, the small silver shape of the USB drive, the cursor blinking in the corner of the screen. Every time his mind jumps forward to humiliation, he returns to the hum. Every time it jumps backward to the first meeting where he was told to stop asking questions, he returns to the hum. This is Shugyo inside FUDOSHIN. Not hardship for the sake of looking tough. Not punishment. Intelligent pressure. The kind that trains a person to stay usable when fear wants to make him either frantic or obedient. He reaches for the USB drive now, but slowly enough that his own body understands who is in command. His fingers close around it. It is warmer than he expected, warmed by the desk lamp and the heat of the room. For a moment he simply holds it in his palm. He remembers the first time he felt proud to wear the company badge. First job out of college. New shoes. Cheap apartment. Calling home from the parking lot after orientation because he wanted someone to know he had made it into a real building with glass doors and benefits. The memory hurts because corruption does not only steal money. It steals the innocence of people who wanted to believe the room was honorable. His grip tightens. Then he loosens it. He will not let betrayal make him sloppy. He pulls the chair closer to the desk. He sits upright. He rereads the line on the pad. Next. The next action is not to become a symbol. The next action is not to win the whole war tonight. The next action is to move with enough care that truth is not damaged by his fear. He keeps the evidence separate from his anger. He keeps his words plain. He keeps the decision grounded in what happened, not in what he wants people to suffer for. The dark office starts to feel less like a trap and more like a forge. Same walls. Same monitor. Same locked doors. But the pressure is working on him differently now. A few minutes ago, it was crushing him into reaction. Now it is pressing him into shape. He notices one more impulse rise, the desire to imagine himself brave. He lets that go too. No one is clapping. No one is filming. No music swells in the ceiling tiles. The building does not recognize the moral weight of the moment. It remains what it was: cubicles, carpet, policy binders, stale coffee, sleeping elevators. Good. Honor that needs an audience is still negotiating. He places the USB drive beside the legal pad, aligned with the edge of the paper. Not tossed. Not hidden. Placed. A small ritual. His hand returns to the keyboard. His breathing is still not perfect, and his stomach still feels tight, but the panic has lost its authority. He reads the blank line under next one last time. Then he writes the next clean step. Not the entire future. Not the trial in his imagination. Not the argument with powerful people who are not in the room. Just the next clean step. That is how FUDOSHIN trains under power. It takes the enormous and makes it immediate. It takes the terrifying and makes it physical. It takes a life-threatening shadow and brings it down into posture, breath, hands, words, and the refusal to be rushed by fear. The USB drive is still small in his palm. The consequences are still real. But now the fear has to stand behind truth, not in front of it. The office does not become brighter. The clock still says 2 a.m. The monitor still throws a pale rectangle across his face. The conference room glass still reflects him as a thin, tired figure in a building that feels too large for one junior accountant. The computer fan keeps humming under the desk, steady and indifferent, as if it has been hired to remind him that the world does not pause when a person is trying to stay honorable. Nothing outside him has been solved. That matters. Because real transformation is rarely the part where the pressure disappears. It is usually the part where the pressure remains, but it no longer gets to arrange your posture. He looks different now, but not in a heroic way. His shirt is still wrinkled at the elbows. His eyes still have that late-night dryness from staring too long at numbers and bad choices. His stomach still tightens when he imagines the email accounts, the meetings, the company statements, the polite sentences powerful people use when they are preparing to erase someone. The fear is still there. It just has a smaller chair. The USB drive lies beside the legal pad, aligned with the edge of the paper. Earlier, it looked like the object that could ruin him. Now it looks like the object that has forced him to stop lying to himself. It is still small enough to fit inside a closed fist. But the meaning has changed. It is no longer a symbol of panic. It is a measure of command. He places one finger on it, not to act yet, not to rush, just to feel the cool metal under his skin. The contact brings him back into the room. Not tomorrow. Not the courtroom in his imagination. Not the imagined humiliation of walking out with a cardboard box. Here. Dark office. Humming fan. Files on the screen. Truth in front of him. Fear beside it. That is the new order. Fear is allowed in the room, but it does not sit at the head of the table. He reads the words on the legal pad again. Facts. Fear. Next. They look almost childish, 3 blunt words written by a tired hand. But they keep him from drifting. He is no longer trying to become fearless. That fantasy has left him. He can feel how immature it would be now, to demand a clean soul before doing a difficult thing. He is afraid because he has something to lose. A paycheck. A name. A future he thought would grow quietly if he kept his head down and did the work. The old version of him wanted truth to come with protection. The version sitting here now understands that protection may come late, unevenly, or not at all. So he stops building his courage around outcomes he cannot command. He builds it around the next honest movement. His hand returns to the keyboard. The keys feel slightly greasy from hours of work. The cursor blinks where the next sentence should go. He does not write like a man trying to punish the company. He writes like a man trying not to contaminate the truth with his own fear. Plain words. Clear references. No drama. No self-pity. No insults hidden inside moral language. Each sentence has to carry its own weight. He pauses before one phrase that sounds too emotional. Deletes it. Rewrites it. He checks the file name against the document. He checks the date. He checks what he knows and what he only suspects. There is a discipline in that restraint that no one will see. Maybe that is why it matters. He is not performing integrity. He is practicing it in the dark, with stale coffee beside his hand and nobody there to reward the effort. Outside the windows, the city is mostly asleep. A few red lights blink on top of distant buildings. Somewhere, delivery trucks are moving through empty streets. Somewhere, a night guard is watching cameras. Somewhere, people are waking up early for jobs that depend on systems they will never fully see. The thought lands heavily. Corporate corruption does not stay inside spreadsheets. It leaks into ordinary lives. Into pensions. Into customers. Into workers who trusted reports because someone with a title told them the numbers were clean. He is not saving the world tonight. He knows better than that. But he is refusing to help the lie travel one quiet step farther. The fan hums again. For the first time, he does not hear it as a countdown. He hears it as a line. A simple line in the room that keeps returning, steady enough to train against. Breath. Screen. Paper. Drive. The same office that made him feel trapped now gives him objects he can use to stay present. The walls have not changed. His relationship to them has. That is FUDOSHIN in modern clothes. Not armor. Not ancient theater. Not some cold, emotionless pose. A tired accountant in a dark office, choosing not to let fear become the author of his next sentence. A person under pressure refusing both collapse and recklessness. Calm command in the place where calm is least convenient. He thinks again of his mother's text, "Don't work too late." The words still hurt. He still does not answer. Not yet. But now the silence is different. Earlier, it felt like hiding. Now it feels like containment. He is holding the night in one room so it does not spill into every part of him. Later, there may be explanations. Later, there may be consequences. Later, people who did not sit in this chair may decide what they think about him. Right now, he has a smaller duty. Keep the truth clean. Keep the hand steady. Keep fear in its place. He saves the document draft. The soft click of the keyboard sounds louder than it should. He sits back and lets the room settle around him. No triumph arrives. No certainty comes through the ceiling. His career does not suddenly feel safe. His name does not become protected because his posture improved. But something important has moved. He is no longer asking the company to define his worth. He is no longer asking fear to decide the size of his life. He is no longer treating comfort as proof that he is making the right choice. The USB drive waits near his hand. At the beginning of the night, it was a threat. In the middle of the night, it became an anchor. Now, near the edge of action, it becomes a boundary. On one side is the life where he keeps the job but loses the part of himself that knows the difference between obedience and honor. On the other side is uncertainty, costly and unfinished, but clean enough to stand on. He does not smile. That would feel false. He only straightens the legal pad, squares the USB drive with the paper, and breathes until his hand no longer trembles. The fear of losing everything has not vanished. It may walk with him for a long time. But it will walk behind the truth now, not in front of it. Power can threaten your position. It cannot command your posture unless you hand it the right. Maybe your battlefield is not a dark office at 2 a.m. Maybe it is a meeting where everyone knows the numbers are wrong, but nobody wants to be the first voice. Maybe it is a kitchen table where bills are spread out and fear starts making your values look negotiable. Maybe it is the quiet drive home after you realize comfort has been asking for pieces of your character. The junior accountant still has no guarantee. The USB drive does not protect his career. The truth does not make the powerful gentle. But it gives him one thing fear could not give him: a clean place to stand. So today, before pressure tells you who to become, find your own USB drive. The object. The sentence. The small decision that forces you to stop shrinking. And if this spoke to something you are carrying, stay with samurai discipline. Fear can speak, but it does not get to command.